Welcome to the Economy Magazine. I'm Benjamin Chong Alfaraz with a top economic report. On today's show, modern-day slavery continues worldwide, and a look at Gaza's startup potential. First, the headlines. Emerging market currencies fell to 14-year lows against the dollar as investors flocked to the U.S. currency and oil prices remain weak. The J.P. Morgan Emerging Market Currency Index fell to its lowest level since it was created in 2000. The stronger dollar further weighed down the price of Brent crude, which dropped 4% on Monday to just over $66 a barrel. Emerging markets have been hit by the dollar's rise, which makes imports more expensive, drives up inflation, and increases the cost of their dollar-denominated debt. The Bank of Russia carried out its largest intervention so far this month to ease pressure on the ruble, the bank's data showed on Tuesday. The central bank sold $1.93 billion in the currency market on Friday, taking the overall amount of December interventions to $4.53 billion. On Tuesday, the ruble eased 0.8% to 54.2 per dollar, towards its weakest ever level of nearly 55 against the dollar reached last week. The central bank let the ruble float freely a month ago, but retained the right to intervene whenever it deemed it necessary for financial stability. Eurozone ministers on Monday approved a request from Greece for a 2-month extension to its bailout program that was set to end December 31st. The EU considered extending the current bailout by 6 months to mid-2015, but Athens only agreed to extend the unpopular program by a few weeks. Prime Minister Antonis Samaras is struggling to push through an early exit from the bailout ahead of elections. But when Athens in October proposed to break free completely of financial oversight, it spooked markets and sent Greek borrowing rates to dangerously high levels. Greece and its lenders remain at odds as the EU and IMF demand 1.7 billion euros in additional measures to hit budget targets next year. The disputed budget shortfall has held up the country's final bailout inspection and planned exit from the aid program.
Even though there has been some progress, it is impossible to finalize, to positively conclude the fifth review this year. That was one of your questions. So that was one of the first conclusions we took today. On that basis, we said we need an extension.
The U.S. government sued Deutsche Bank seeking to recover more than $190 million over alleged tax fraud more than 14 years ago. Deutsche Bank allegedly used insolvent shell companies to hide taxable gains from the U.S. Internal Revenue Service. Deutsche Bank in 1999 purchased a corporation sitting on an unrealized $150 million gain in shares of drug maker Bristol-Myers Squibb. To avoid income taxes of up to $51 million, Deutsche Bank in 2000 allegedly sold the stock to shell companies, which paid for them with short-term loans. Those companies resold the stock to a different Deutsche Bank entity, only to then repay the loans, leaving them without funds to pay taxes. Slavery was officially abolished in most countries in the West over 150 years ago. But in many places in the Gulf states, China, and South Asia, it is still very much an established practice, with over 2 million slaves in Pakistan alone. The following report gives us a look into the lives of the slaves of the 21st century.
They labor from dawn till dusk, day after day. In these brick factories in southern Pakistan, men, women and children are often shackled to their employers for a wage they never see.
I am indebted. We had to take out a loan from the lender to feed our children. I owe 40,000 to 50,000 rupees. This debt will never be cleared as long as I am alive. It will end when I die because inflation is so high.
The daily wage, rarely more than $2, isn't enough to pay back what's owed, plus the exorbitant interest rates charged. So they fall into a spiral of debt. Their entire salaries go to the lender, who only provides them with food. In the end, the workers belong to the loan shark. Bonded labor is illegal in the country, but rural areas are usually dominated by powerful landowners who wield influence over the local authorities and police. But some are fighting to change this.
Before the union was created, the workers here didn't even have names. They were just numbers. If someone inquired about their names, they'd just say, "Go and ask the owner." Now a worker can guide you through the kiln, but before the owners wouldn't let anybody inside them. Now we visit different kilns from time to time, inquire about the conditions of the workers, and also organise seminars for the workers about their rights.
But the unions are few and often ignored, so they have a negligible voice in a country ranked third for modern slavery after India and China. In this village, one NGO is fighting to free and help those forced to work for nothing. Sajan and his family are now safe after being chained up and beaten by a landowner.
We weren't treated like humans. They treated us like animals. We used to work day and night, and we were so engrossed in our work that we were not sure whether we were working during the daytime or nighttime.
Despite constant threats, Ghulam Haider refuses to give up. His village of freed men has welcomed some 28,000 people in the past 10 years. Each child who arrives is put straight into school in the hope they will escape the vicious cycle.
When a person is educated, he is also unfit to be a slave, So here we are educating people, getting their kids educated through the education system. Other side, we are supporting them through literacy. And also we are telling them about their rights.
But despite his efforts, half of these freed slaves fall straight back into servitude after they leave. Today, it's estimated there are over 2 million bonded laborers in Pakistan, and their future continues to look bleak.
And now for a more uplifting story, which takes us to the startup movement in the embattled Gaza Strip in our Innovation Corner with i24 News reporter Natalie Ehrlich.
Welcome to Innovation at i24 News. I'm Natalie Ehrlich. Well, Gaza Sky Geeks was founded back in 2011 to build a startup movement in the coastal enclave, and we're now joined for an exclusive interview from Gaza City with Saeed Hassan, who is an outreach manager there. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Well, how did the accelerator come about? It is the first one in Gaza.
We've started in 2011 with a generous fund from Google, and the accelerators were started by Mercy Corps. The whole acceleration thing came because we ran a lot of activities as Mercy Corps and other institutions in Gaza for startups and entrepreneurship. But there weren't anything to continue the work with the entrepreneurs we've made and developed and trained. So there was a gap in the ecosystem. So we've had to bring an accelerator to the country. And Google came in with its fund and Mercy Corps, and they started Gaza Sky Geeks to be the first accelerator in Gaza City.
Well, it sounds like a very ambitious project. How were you able to get in touch with some of the entrepreneurs based there?
Mercy Corps have been doing a lot of effort in trying to develop the skills and the business aspects for a lot of the graduates and a lot of the professionals in Gaza. And universities have been doing some approaches in terms of incubation and bringing more of their graduates to the startup board. So, and Gaza Sky Geeks came with a lot of innovations and a lot of activities that we designed and brought to Gaza. And we're the main organizer for events like Startup Weekend. And Startup Weekend is one of our pipeline activities, which we reach entrepreneurs in Gaza and graduates. And we do outreach. We go to universities, we go to schools, we go everywhere in Gaza and private sector in order to attract more people to the startup board.
How much coordination do you have with Ramallah? I know that they had a Startup Weekend there recently.
We're almost working together on this. In the last month, there was the Global Entrepreneurship Week, and we at Gaza held a session in cooperation with Ramallah and West Bank in doing this. And we have a lot of relationships with accelerators there, like Fast Forward, and companies like Sadara Ventures, who's interested in entrepreneurs and startups and entrepreneurs. So we're more like moving like one body in Palestine to enhance the the entrepreneurship movement in Palestine as a whole.
Well, I'm sure a lot of our international viewers would like to hear more about some of the startups that you're working with. Which ones are you most excited about?
We have 4 companies now who's managed and accelerated by Gaza Sky Geeks and are under our supervision. Datrius, which is a social sport network, which allows people to predict and bet for soccer matches and football matches and predict which is the best team and everything. And we have Dalby, Data Warehouse Business Solution Intelligence. And Dalby has a promising future. They've had an agreement with the government of South Sudan to provide them with data intelligence and data systems that will help them in running the country efficiently. But during the last conflict in South Sudan, they didn't close the deal. But they have more promising deals with other factors, other big names in the region. And we have Wasilni, which is a carpooling application in Gaza, something like Uber in the US. And we have Tavi, which is a social network for TV shows, which is built around TV shows and live TV shows.
Well, it does seem like everyone likes TV these days. We are curious, Gaza is still going under construction or reconstruction now after the 50-day war with Israel over the summer. How is that impacting the startup accelerator right now?
Well, as far as we know, and we worked during the last conflict in Gaza, nothing stopped during the war. Even in the ceasefire, we've been going outside and performing as Gaza Sky, still supporting and empowering entrepreneurs in Gaza, and we've seen them work. Like, we've visited people at their companies, at their workspaces, and the conflict for sure affected the whole Gaza community, but Gazans have passion and they're determined to make it happen in Gaza, to get a company with a promising future.
Well, just lastly, before we finish, we do want to hear about your immediate goals right now.
For now, we're raising, since 2011 until now, we've been doing a great job in Gaza. We've been educating the community. We've been spreading the culture of entrepreneurship and startups, and we think we have a promising future now in Gaza. So we're raising money to continue working in Gaza. We have a campaign called Gaza Starts. And we're hoping that the whole world and all the believers in startups and entrepreneurship will support us to continue working in this area of the world in order to bring companies and startups that can compete on a regional and global level, hopefully.
Well, thank you very much for coming on today, Said Hassan. We do appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for hosting us.
And I-24 News reporter Ayman Siksek joins us now on Financial Bazaar with more on how Arab startups fare in the Jewish state. Ayman, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Binyamin.
So how prominent are Arab startups worldwide and how in the Jewish state, in Israel?
Well, it's very interesting to hear what Said Hassan said, because inside Israel, things have been actually going the other way around. For a long time, the Arab population, which consists over 1 million people here in Israel, has not really been part of the tech industry, which in Israel is constantly booming. They've only constituted about 2% of the entire employees in tech. But this has been changing really rapidly over the past couple of years in two very interesting platforms. One, we see that more and more young Arabs, educated young Arabs, are going into big high-tech companies in Israel, like Intel and Cisco and so on. And on the other hand, what we're seeing is a huge boom in startups managed and set up by Arabs with the Arabic language as a main source and as a main target.
Is there more of a connection between Israeli Arabs and Israeli initiatives, so to speak, or is it more of a connection with other Arab initiatives in the Middle East?
No, it's absolutely more of a connection with Israel. I mean, because the Israeli tech industry is constantly on the rise, you know that Palestinians have a problem in reaching out to other Arab countries because relations with Israel are not always too easy to manage in this respect.
Which affects them as well. Right.
Absolutely. So it's definitely the absorption of the huge entrepreneurship in the Israeli side that's boosted the tech company.
And where does Israel's Arab initiative mainly stem from? Like, where do Israeli Arab entrepreneurs come from?
Well, this is a very interesting point because the Jews in Israel usually make their connections in the IDF, actually. You know, that's where entrepreneurial connections are made, and that's how people advance. And this is why it's taken Arabs in Israel a longer time. But recently, we've seen more and more Arabs in Israel studying these fields, technology and all of the related fields. And this is what we're seeing. It's mainly better education, I feel, and better awareness of the tech industry and economy.
Okay, well, Ayman Siksak, thank you very much for joining us in Financial Bazaar. That takes us to the end of this edition of the Economy Magazine, your daily source for economic and financial reports at I-24 News. I'm Benjamin Changal Fares. Follow me on Twitter at Changal Fares. Send us your comments and join us again tomorrow.